What if the biggest decision of Agnes's life isn't really hers at all? That's exactly where episode 7 of the Testaments is taking us. And if you thought the tension was already high, this next episode is about to push everything to a breaking point. Because now it's not just about survival. It's about selection. It's about marriage. And in Gilead, marriage isn't love. It's power. It's control. It's ownership. And for Agnes, this moment has been building ever since the beginning. So the real question is, who is Agnes' match? And more importantly, what does that choice actually mean for her future? Let's start with where we are heading into episode 7. Agnes has spent most of this season caught between obedience and quiet resistance. She's been raised to follow the rules, to trust the system, to believe that everything happening around her is part of some greater order. But cracks have been forming. And now, those cracks are impossible to ignore. Because the moment a girl in Gilead reaches the stage where marriage becomes inevitable, everything changes. This isn't just a milestone. It's a point of no return. Once Agnes is matched with a commander, her life is no longer her own in any sense. And episode 7 is setting up that moment in a way that feels both inevitable and terrifying. Now, let's talk about the preview itself. Because there's a very deliberate shift in tone. The atmosphere feels tighter, colder, more controlled. We see preparations. We see ceremonies. We see the subtle but unmistakable pressure being placed on these girls to perform, to impress, to prove they are worthy. And at the center of it all is Agnes. But here's what stands out. Agnes doesn't look excited. She doesn't look hopeful. She looks uncertain. And that tells us everything. Because deep down, Agnes is starting to understand what this really is. This isn't about finding a partner. It's about being chosen. And being chosen in Gilead means becoming part of a system that consumes you. So when we ask, who is Agnes' match? We're really asking something much darker. Who will own her future? Now, there are a few key possibilities being teased. And each one carries its own set of consequences. The first, and perhaps most obvious, is a high-ranking commander. Someone powerful, influential, deeply embedded in Gilead's structure. On the surface, this might seem like a good match. Security, status, protection. But let's be honest, those things come at a cost. Because a powerful commander doesn't just want a wife. He wants control. He wants obedience. He wants someone who will fit perfectly into his world, without question. And Agnes? She's not that person anymore. Not completely. So if this is the direction the show takes, we're looking at a future where Agnes is forced to suppress everything she's beginning to feel. And that's where things could get dangerous. Because the more she resists internally, the harder it becomes to survive externally. But there's another possibility. And this one is far more complicated. Garth. Now, Garth has been quietly building presence in the story. At first, he seemed like just another figure within the system. But as we've seen more of him, it's clear there's something deeper going on. He's not just existing in Gilead. He's navigating it. Carefully. Strategically. And that raises a huge question. Is Garth really who he appears to be? Or is he playing his own game? If Garth is connected to Agnes as a potential match, the situation becomes incredibly complex. Because on one hand, he represents familiarity. Someone Agnes knows. Someone she might even trust. But on the other hand, that closeness could be exactly what makes him dangerous. Because in Gilead, trust is a liability. And relationships are rarely what they seem. Now here's where things get even more interesting. There are hints that Garth may not be fully aligned with Gilead's ideology. Subtle hints. Nothing confirmed, but enough to raise suspicion. And if that's true, then pairing him with Agnes could have massive implications. Because suddenly, this isn't just a marriage. It's a potential alliance. A crack in the system. A chance for something to shift. But, and this is important, that kind of hope comes with serious risk. Because if Garth is hiding something, if he's not who he claims to be, then being connected to him puts Agnes directly in danger. And in Gilead, danger doesn't come with warnings. It comes suddenly. And it comes hard. Now, let's not forget another key factor here. Daisy. Because while Agnes is being pulled deeper into Gilead structure, Daisy is moving in the opposite direction. She's questioning, observing, challenging, and her presence is starting to influence everything, including Agnes. The relationship between Agnes and Daisy is becoming one of the most important dynamics in the series, because Daisy represents something Agnes has never truly had before: perspective,
Choice.
the idea that life could be different. And as Agnes gets closer to this moment of being matched, that influence becomes even more powerful, because now she's not just facing a decision. She's facing a realization that she might not want the life that's been chosen for her. And that creates tension, real tension, because once you start questioning Gilead, there's no going back. Now, let's talk about the bigger picture, because Agnes's match isn't just about her. It's about what Gilead represents. Marriage in this world is a tool, a way to maintain order, to reinforce hierarchy, to ensure that power stays exactly where it's supposed to be. So, whoever Agnes is matched with, it's not random, it's calculated. Every detail matters. Her background, her behavior, her potential. And that means her match is going to reveal something important, not just about her future, but about the direction the story is heading. Now here's something you need to keep in mind. The show has been building toward a shift. Slowly, carefully, but it's happening. And Agnes is at the center of it, because she represents the next generation, the future of Gilead. And if she begins to break away from the system, that changes everything. So episode 7 isn't just about revealing who Agnes will marry. It's about testing her, pushing her, forcing her to confront what she truly believes, and whether she's willing to accept the life that's been laid out for her, or fight against it. Now, let's go back to the preview one more time. Look at the way Agnes is framed, the way she moves, the way she reacts. There's hesitation. There's uncertainty, but there's also something else: awareness. And that's the most dangerous thing of all, because once someone becomes aware of the system they're in, they start to see the cracks, they start to see the lies, and eventually, they start to act. So when episode 7 finally answers the question, who is Agnes' match? Don't just focus on the name.
Focus on what it means.
Because this isn't just about who she ends up with. It's about who she becomes.
Does she submit?
Does she adapt? Or does she resist? Because in Gilead, those choices don't just define your future. They determine whether you survive. And here's the biggest question of all. What if Agnes refuses? If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because episode 7 is about to change everything. And trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next.